So we're in the middle of talking about Klal Revi, the fourth principle. We were talking about tefillin. So let's go back to read it, just to resume where we left off last time. Ke'en ha'mavur v'noida b'azharas ha'kosuv v'kshartem la'oisa yadecha shaf al pisha kavanas ha'kosuv hu al kol yisatara v'gam niram l'shoyne ke'en ha'mazir rak al divrei ha'torah asher zulose l'kashrim la'ois kol zois ha'idiyano chazal b'amitas kavanas ha'kosuv v'nyano al atzmai v'adar v'zulas atzmai v'nyano ein tzorech klal l'kashrim al hayad shim yichase b'ksivas ha'tfilin afil ois achas me'kosuv v'zeh v'kshartem ein oid b'kshiyasam Shum toyeles. Ad shegam k'shemekashim oisam oivim alas horas hakosuv. So we said that by tefillin, that the tzivoy to put on tefillin and the commandment itself of putting on tefillin is not something separate. It's all one, because if you don't have in the parchment of inside our tefillin, if it doesn't say the parsha of Akshartim L'Ois Al Yodecha, so then we don't fulfill the mitzvah of putting on tefillin. So it's not something separate. So it would be as if I would ask somebody to please hang up a sign that Rabbi Chaim Salesky will be giving a shir in the Chai Kolim on Thursday, and the person would write on the sign, Rabbi Chaim Salesky will be giving a shir in the 18 principles of how to learn Likutey Moharan, and then after that he would write there will be a shir on Thursday explaining the 18 principles of Likutey Moharan. That's not something we're used to, because there's something completely separate. There's the directions, there's the commandments, and there's what we do, what comes out of that, but it has they're not connected. There's something separate. So that's why, really, this spirituality, here we're learning about something that we're not so familiar with, so that's why it's difficult for us to understand. And Rabbi ben Nachman, he goes on to give more examples. The next example that he gives is also when the Torah tells us that we need to write mezuzahs and put on our doorpost, that in the very mezuzah that we put on our doorpost, it needs to be the parsha that says that you're going to write the mezuzah. And also when it comes to reciting the Shema prayer in the morning and in the evening, that when you read the parsha, it talks about how you have to speak about the words of Torah all the time, and we learn out, because I'll tell us that these very words, the Shema prayer itself, that's the words that we have to say when we wake up in the morning and before we go to sleep at night. And to the point that if we don't say them, that we transgress we transgress the mitzvah. The Chachmei HaKabbalah mafligim b'ramos kol ois v'ois shebeparshas ha'ele asher hein ha'oris v'amoichin u'mofrachin l'chol ish v'ish. And the Chachmei HaKabbalah, they speak about how each and every letter within these parshas in the Torah, within them lies the recipe of what we need to get our spiritual healing. And therefore, even the warning that you have to keep this mitzvah is also a part of the spiritual recipe of how to heal ourselves. And as well as Kriya Shema. Okay, so now I wanted to go back to the story that we skipped before, that Rabbi Nachman, he mentioned in the beginning of this klal, which can be found in Chaim Moharan in the Chelek Sipurim Chadashim, and in order that'll flow easier and quicker, I'm going to read it from the English translation of Chaim Moharan called Tzaddik, and I'm reading it from page 212. The year 5569, first day of Hanukkah, after the lighting of the Hanukkah lamp in the evening. Rabbi Nachman relates, a visitor came into a house and asked the head of the house, "From what do you make a living?" "I don't have a fixed livelihood at home," his host replied, "but the world provides me with what I need to live." The guest asked him, "What do you learn?" The host answered him, and they continued talking together until they were talking in real earnest heart to heart. The host began to feel a tremendous longing and yearning to know how to reach a certain level of holiness. "I will learn with you," said the guest. The host was surprised, and he started thinking, perhaps this isn't a human being at all. But he looked again and saw that he was talking to him normally like a human being. But immediately afterwards, he felt a strong sense of faith and he resolved to believe in him. He started calling him my teacher and said to him, "First of all, I would like to request that you teach me how I should conduct myself with due respect for beings like yourself. Not I need scarcely add that I could really detract from your true glory, God forbid. But even so, it is hard for human beings to be as meticulous as they should be in these matters. That is why I want you to teach me how to behave with due respect." "But for the moment I haven't the time," he answered. "Another time I will come to you and teach you this. Right now I must go away from here." "Well, I also need to learn from you about this," said the host. "How far do I have to go when I accompany you on your way, as the host is bound to do when his guests depart?" "Till outside entrance," he replied. The host began to think to himself, "How can I go out with him? For the moment I am with him among ordinary beings, but if I go out with him alone, who knows who he is?" He asked him, saying, "I am afraid to go out with you." "If I can learn with you just like this," the visitor replied, "then surely I want to do anything else to you who is going to stop me." The host went with him out of the entrance. All of a sudden he seized him and started to fly with him. It was cold for the host, so the other took a garment and gave it to him. "Take this garment," he said, "and it will be good for you. You will have food and drink, and everything will be good, and you will live in your house." He went on flying with him. Meanwhile, the host suddenly noticed that he was in his house. He couldn't believe that this was he himself in his own house. But he looked carefully, and sure enough, he was speaking with ordinary human beings and eating and drinking normally. But then he again noticed that he was flying like before. Then he looked again, and lo and behold, he was in the house. Again he noticed that he was flying, and so he went on for quite a time. After a time he set him down in a valley between two mountains. There the man found a book in which there was various combination of letters, Aleph, Zayin, Ches, and Dalet, etc. Inside the book there were drawings in various vessels, and inside the vessels there were letters. Also inside the vessels were the letters belonging to the vessels, i.e. through these letters it was possible to make the vessels themselves. And this is the main point which Rabbi was referring to in the Klal. The vessels that within the vessels themselves have the vessels which have the ability to create them. The man had a tremendous desire to study the book, but then he noticed that he was in his house. He took another look and he was there in the valley. He decided to ascend the mountain in case he would find some kind of habitation there. When he came to the mountain, he saw a tree of gold standing there with the golden branches. Hanging from the branches were vessels like those drawn in the book, and inside the vessels were other vessels through which these first vessels could be made. He wanted to take the vessels from there, but he wasn't able to because they were all tangled up in the branches. Meanwhile, he noticed that he was in his house. It was something extraordinary for him. How was it that one moment he could be here and the next moment there? He wanted to speak about it to other human beings, but how can one explain something incredible like this to other people? They would find it hard to believe. At this moment he looked through the window and saw the same visitor. He started begging him to come close to him, but the visitor said, "I don't have time because I'm on my way to you." "This in itself is amazing to me," said the man. "I'm right here. What do you mean that you are on your way to me?" He answered him, "As soon as you showed yourself willing to go with me and accompany me beyond the entrance, I took the neshama from you and gave it a garment from the lower garden of Eden. The nefesh ruach remained with you. This is why when you attach your thought to that place, you are there and you draw the radiance of that place over yourself. Then when you return here, you are here. I do not know from which world he is, but this much is certain. He is from a world of good. So far it is not finished, it is not completed." That's the end of that story. And Sipurim Chadashim in Chaim Moharan. And it's, as understood, it's a very difficult story to understand what's going on. But through this klal, also through this principle the Rabbi Ben Avlam tells us, it also sheds light into the story. For example, we have one of the very important parts of this klal, this principle, is that there's two things which are really one, but just different dimensions. So, for example, in the story, we have the neshama, and we have also, that was separated from the nefesh and ruach. The nefesh and ruach corresponds to the more physical needs of a person, and as opposed to the neshama, which is the intellect. And it's really all one. It was separated, but it's just the different dimensions. The neshama itself, that's what creates from there, it creates the nefesh and ruach. So that's the kli, that it creates the kli. So a way to help us to understand this klal is when we connect this klal, this principle to other of the principles, we start understanding it. It can help us give us a better understanding of how we use it and what the klal itself means. So, for example, the 11th principle is when the Rabbi, when he mentions a pasuk, and he gives his explanation of the pasuk, of the verse in the Torah or in the Nach. So the Rebbe's explanation, that is the simple meaning of the verse. Even though it might not seem like that, it might seem sometimes the exact opposite, but even so, that is the simple meaning. So when we understand the Klal Revi, we understand the fourth principle, that can help us to come to understand how the simple meaning of the text, which according to Rashi, which is always what we do when we open up the Marmakomos, the sources that the Rebbe mentions, we need to learn it with Perish Rashi, which is the simple meaning. And so when we open it, when we see Rashi, it seems very different. But when we understand that there's two things which are really one, just in different dimensions, then we can start coming to understand what the Rebbe is saying and the simple meaning of the verse is all one. So, for example, in the Torah Resh Pei Beis, and the Torah Zamra, the Rebbe mentions the pasuk from in Tehillim, "Va'oid ma'at ve'ein rasha, v'spanata al makomoi ve'einenu." So the way that the simple meaning of the verse, according to Rashi, is in Tehillim it's referring there to a person. He might be discouraged because he sees that the Rishonim, the wicked people, they're being successful, and he might be jealous of them. So David Melech tells them, you should not be jealous of them, because you'll see that in a short while they will all die out, and you'll look and you'll see where they were, and they won't be there anymore because they all have already died out. And the way that the Rebbe explains the pasuk is that when you start looking at a person who is a rasha, a wicked person, you need to start looking for the nekudas tovos, the good points within this person. And once you find the good points within this person, you made it that he's not a rasha anymore. And then when you look on his place, you'll see that he's not there because he's a completely different person than he was when you originally looked at him. So the way we could say this is that through the Oid Mad Ve'en Rasha of the Rebbe, that brings about the Oid Mad Ve'en Rasha of the pasuk, which means the following: that through the way the Rebbe explained, through doing the avoid of what the Rebbe told us, that we need to judge people favorably, even the Rasha, that'll bring us. That itself will kill out the Rasha and make it that there won't be any more Rishonim, and then that will bring about to the end result, like the pasuk, according to Rashi, is saying that you look and you won't see any more Rishonim. So when the Rebbe explains a pasuk, that's the siba, that's the cause for, and the way that the pasuk is itself with Rashi, that is the effect, that's the result. So, but when we understand this, that these are two things, but it's really just a different dimension, but it's all one, then we'll be able to start making the connection to understand how it has to do with the pasuk, and then we'll be able to understand much better. Another way of saying this Klal Revi is that the derech and the teitzah, that the way to get there and the outcome are not something separate. It's all the same. That it's a different dimension, but it's all one. So, like we see in the story, that the neshama and the nefesh and ruach were all really one, but it was separated. It was a different dimension. So now another important thing here that we need to explain is that also like what when the Rebbe himself, when he said this Torah, or when any Torah he said, he brought this hasaga, this comprehension into the world, and he himself was Makayim at the same time. For example, like in the Torah Zayin Chelik Beis, the second Chelik of Likutey Moharan, the Rabbi reveals to us what is the Ratzon Sheberatzonos, this great lofty idea, and he revealed that idea at that exact time, on Shabbos at Shalosh Shus time, which is referred to as the time that's the Ratzon Sheberatzonos, because the Rabbi had to be connected. And also in Torah Vav, in the first Chelik of Likutey Moharan, when the Rabbi revealed the idea of Adam HaYoshev Al Kisei, this lofty idea of Kabbalah, he sat on a chair, and that's when he revealed it, because it was not something separate. In other words, that the iyun, the learning of Likutey Moharan, the in-depth learning, and the lamaisa and the practical applications of it are not something separate. It's all the same thing, just in a different dimension. This is something we're not used to. For example, in the Sefer, we have the Sefer Chaim, in which the Chaim he teaches us the laws of Lashon Hara and Rechivus. But he wrote a separate Sefer called Shmiras HaLashon, which is mechazik us that we should not speak Lashon Hara, and we should be careful with our dibur, with our speech. But it's something completely separate. In the words of Likutey Moharan, in the text, the words in the text themselves, underneath it lies within them both the iyun and the lemaisa and the practicality. The words themselves bring you to keeping it. And this is something that's very difficult for us to understand because we're not used to this. For example, that if we don't stay true to the text of the wording of Likutey Moharan, we'll never be able to do what it says. For example, if a lot of times people they take a one-liner in Likutey Moharan and they use it for whatever they're writing about. And even though the line that they took is true, it does say that, but since it's not 100% accurate to the text of what the Rabbi is saying, so it will be an eitzah, it will help a person, it will be a good advice, but it will only be a eitzah chelkit, only a partial eitzah. A partial advice that will help us in some scenarios, but it won't help us in every scenario. But if we stay true to the text and we make sure that it's 100% what's going on in Likutey Moharan, so then the advice that we take out of Likutey Moharan will be an eitzah klalis. It will be advice that will help us in every aspect of our life that we can use always, forever. And when we understand that, and also the opposite way, something that we're very not used to, is that if we don't do what the Rabbi tells us, we don't be Makayim, we don't do the practical applications of what the Rabbi says, we won't be able to understand what the Rabbi is saying. We won't understand it fully. Only if we actually do what the Rabbi tells us, only then we'll be able to fully understand what is going on in Likutey Moharan. And another point is that we have to understand that our life in Likutey Moharan is not something separate. And once we understand this, we can start taking out practical eitzahs from Likutey Moharan. For example, in Torah Chav Aleph, the Rabbi speaks about the idea of makifin, which is this lofty Kabbalah idea that something that's above a person that he doesn't understand, it's not able to enter his mind, and so therefore it stays outside of his mind. And a person can say, "Oh, that's Kabbalah. That's not for me. I don't know Kabbalah, so I'll close Likutey Moharan, put it back on the shelf. This is a Sefer Kabbalah. It's not for me." But if we understand that this is not something separate, this has to do with my life. So then we'll be able to understand the learning better, to be able to understand what does it mean makifin, and we'll also be able to apply it to our life. So, for example, a person when he puts on a coat, so he surrounds himself with makifin. That's the same idea as makifin. Or if a person puts on a blanket, he surrounds himself. That's the idea of makifin. So when he understands that, then he can start having appreciation of what he's doing when he puts on a coat or when he puts on a blanket. For example, the Rabbi Belzer, the Belzer of, he himself, it took him a very long time. It took him maybe over an hour to get dressed, because he understood how the significance of putting on clothing. When we understand that the makifin, this great lofty idea of Kabbalah, and my putting on a coat is not something separate, so then we can have a whole new appreciation of what we're doing. And also then when we put on our coat, we'll be able to understand Likutey Moharan better. Or for example, it talks in Torah Zayin in the second chelik of Likutey Moharan, talks about the idea of Shena, sleeping. So a person can just say, sleeping is nothing special, but if he understands that through the sleeping, it's the stalchus amoichin, he puts aside his mind, and through that he goes into emunah, into faith, and through that he's able to understand higher levels of intellect that he wouldn't have been able to understand until then. So then before he goes to sleep, he has a whole new appreciation of what he's about to do. And then also the opposite, that through sleeping, after he'll sleep, he'll in truth he'll understand better these great ideas. So we have to understand that this is not so that the practical and the learning of Likutey Moharan are not something separate. That there's a lot of people that say, I want to learn Likutey Moharan. They see these great big ideas and they don't understand. They say, I want the lemais, I want the practical. And a person that wants like that, he'll never get anything. He'll be stuck with anything. There's other people that say, okay, you told me the lemais, you told me the practical applications, but I want some rano, I want some deep ideas. So we have to understand that Likutey Moharan, it's not something separate. It's all together. And once we understand that, that's when we can start moving along. And so I just want to go on aside for a second. That one of the important things you can see from this call and this story is that a person, he doesn't understand that everything he needs is all inside his life. The story of his life, the secrets of his life could all be found within his life. A person's so busy looking, he thinks that if I would have this spouse or these children, or if I would live in this neighborhood, and if I would have this job, then that would be the answer to all my problems. And that's not true. The Rabbi teaches us that everything you need, Hashem gave you, and it exists within your life. Like for example, in the story that when that man gave the Baal Bayis, gave the host that garment, even though he didn't know where he was and what was going on to him, but every time, and even though that was how he was gaining in kedusha and holiness, every time he always came back to his house because he never left anywhere. He was always where he was originally. And that's something we have to understand. The Rabbi teaches us we have to connect to Hashem from where we are. Everybody thinks that they need to be like Rabbi Yashiv or Rav Avadia or Moshe Feinstein. Everybody can fill in the blank. The Golish B'Torah, the tzaddik that they look up to. Everyone thinks they need to be them, and only when they'll be like them, then they could serve Hashem. But the Rabbi teaches us no. Even if a person is in Shol Tachtis, even if he's reached the lowest level that it's possible, there he can connect to Hashem. Even Gehenna, a person can connect to Hashem. And only if a person connects to Hashem from there, then can he start to move. And slowly, he'll be able to go up the ladder and grow until he, the emes and truth becomes a big tzaddik. Becoming a big tzaddik is irrelevant. The main thing that we have to do is we have to serve Hashem. And the only way we can do that is if we connect to Hashem from where we are. So if I know that these are my shortcomings, and I connect to Hashem from there, then I can start the whole story and I can start moving along the ladder. For example, Rabbi Ben Nachman himself, he was in a certain story. There was a certain malamed, a Rabbi in Cheder, who taught the children, and he had a very big problem with his anger, and he always would get angry, and he would take it out on the children, and he knew it was wrong. So after that, he would go to the forest, and he would daven to Hashem to help him. He doesn't want to get angry. He knows that this is wrong. He doesn't want to do this, but he has a big Yitzhar, and he's not being successful to be miscovered, to overcome it. And then one time after he had davened about this, some people overheard him and he came back, and then right away he got angry at the students again. And the people made fun of him. This is ridiculous. This is a big joke. And Rav Ben Rav Nachman said, no, this is a person that's a real Avodah Hashem. He realizes that he has a problem, and he's connected to Hashem where he is. He wasn't Matzliach. He fell to his Yitzhar, but he realized that that's wrong, and he doesn't want to be there, and he wants to go. So he davens Hashem about it. That's a person that has true success, and this is something that, because we've been so influenced by the Goyim, that we don't realize this. And this is our main. We have to realize that this is what in Judaism. This is the main success of a person, connecting to Hashem from where you are. And if you don't connect to Hashem where you are, you'll never be successful. So this is something that this call and in truth all these principles teach us this, but all these principles teach us how to serve Hashem with pshitus and timas, with simplicity. And it used to be that it wasn't necessary to teach these principles as something separate, because everybody, it was a part of their life. It's like telling somebody, trying to explain to somebody a computer. In our generation, everybody knows what a computer is. Not something. This is part of our life. We don't need to explain to somebody what a computer is, but somebody that never seen a computer in their life, so you have to explain them all the makeup of it and how there's a screen and there's a keyboard. You have to explain him all the different parts and how to use it, because he has no idea. So because we became in our generation, we become so far from the simplicity that the Rabbi speaks about. So it's necessary to teach these principles as something separate in order that we can understand how to connect to Likutey Moharan, because most people are not connecting, and they feel that it's not safe for a book that's not for them. It's only for Kabbalah, so they put it away and they don't learn it. And our goal here with these shirim is to know that we can connect to the Likutey Moharan. It is something that is relevant to us in our lives, and that we can gain from tremendously. Okay, so that was the end of the fourth principle. So just in summary, we learned here that the kli and the or we could call it also the derech and the tetzah, the way to get there and the outcome are not something separate. It's just a different dimension. It's all one. It's one thing that has a different dimension. And through that we can understand that the learning, the practical application of the Likutey Moharan and the learning itself is not something separate. And also it'll help us understand when we learn the different marmakomas that the Rabbi brings, to understand how he explains the source and how the simple meaning of the verse is not something separate. Okay, we're moving along now to Kal Chamishi, the fifth principle. Hu kol mikra emamar Chazal. Anytime the Rebbe brings a verse in the Torah or a Nach, or a Gemara or a Medrash, shemazkir ksas mita lezeinin, that mentions only part. The Rebbe didn't bring the whole thing; he brought only part of it, and then after that it says v'chulei, etc. Even though he didn't bring the whole entire part, he assumes that you're going to look it up, and he's referring to the whole entire, in the Torah, the whole entire parsha that's connected to what he brought, or in the Gemara or Medrash, the whole entire sugya that's surrounding what the part that the Rebbe brings, everything that's relevant to what the Rebbe brought. And you have to do your homework, you have to look it up. And it's not only that if you have clear the Mahalach of the Torah, what the Rebbe is saying in the Torah that we're learning in the Likutey Moharan, so then you'll be able to understand that whole parsha better, and also vice versa. If you look up that parsha and understand that parsha or that Mamar Chazal, that'll help you to understand what's going on in the Torah that we're learning in the Likutey Moharan. And so one very important thing about this principle is it's teaching us that it's not that the Rebbe he thought of a great idea, and then he found a support or found a proof that says it somewhere in the pasuk or in Chazal. Or when he had an idea, and when he was learning on his own, this came to him that this is connected to here. No, it's much more than this. That what stands behind the Chumash or the Mamar Chazal, of what's going on there, that is what the Rebbe is saying in Likutey Moharan. It's not something separate, and this is something that we don't have by any other sefer. That this is what's happening in the Chumash. We just didn't notice it because we didn't learn on a higher level to understand what's going on. But through the Likutey Moharan, we could come to the highest level to realize what's going on in the Chumash. The Likutey Moharan teaches us how to learn Chumash, how to learn Gemara, how to learn Medrash. Without the Likutey Moharan, we wouldn't know how to come to the highest level of how to learn these Sfarim. And so here I wanted to take a break to explain a very important thing here. That this learning that we're doing, when we learn the Likutey Moharan, we have to have in mind a couple of things. One of the things that is very, very important that we have in mind is that when we open the Likutey Moharan, when I open it and I learn it, that when I'm done learning and I close the sefer and put it away, I have to have in mind that I'm going to be a different person, and that I have to have the ratzon, I have to have the will to change, that I want to change, and I have to believe in the Rebbe, and believe that through the Rebbe I could change, and I could be on a higher level and to serve Hashem on a higher level. But if I don't believe in that, so it's very nice that we're learning these 18 principles, and we won't be able to get anywhere, because the whole part of these 18 principles is that we're trying to be Mekasher, connect ourselves to the neshama, to the soul of Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Breslov. That once we take the Rabbi Nachman out of the picture, we can't gain anything. So even though we're learning these rules, if we don't believe in the greatness of the tzaddik, and we don't believe in Hashem, we don't believe that we ourselves can change, we won't get anywhere. But if we have the emunah, we believe in ourselves, and we believe that the eitz of the advice of the tzaddik, we could change and we could serve Hashem better, and we have the will to change, then we can start moving along in our verse Hashem. And I'll just say two stories that come to mind about this. One is that in the time of in Poland, that there was after the Rabbi was already passed on, that there was a person who was called Benzion Akter, and the Or of the Rebbe, he found out about the Rebbe in Poland, so he traveled to Uman, and when he got to Uman that night, when he went to sleep, he had a dream, and in the dream the Rebbe came to him, and it says in Chaim that anybody that sees the Rebbe in a dream, it's a big source, it's a big merit. So, and then what did the Rebbe tell him? The Rebbe said, if you want to be makusher to me, if you want to be connected to me, learn this sefer. And the book he was referring to was Likutey Moharan. If we want to be makusher, we want to be connected to the Rebbe, we need to learn the book of the Rebbe. We need to learn the book of the Rebbe. We need to learn Likutey Moharan. And another story that comes to mind is that there was somebody. His name was Chaim. He was Amaretz. He didn't know anything. He was illiterate, and he didn't even know how he couldn't even couldn't read the words of Likutey Moharan. And one time they found him in the shul in Uman, and he had a Likutey Moharan in front of him, and he was crying away, and he had a tremendous story. And they didn't know. And people asked him, "What's going on? You don't know how to read. How what's going on here?" So he told them that I believe in the kedusha of this sefer. I believe in the holiness of this book, and through that's how he was able to connect to the Rebbe and gain from it, even though he wasn't able to learn it. But Baruch Hashem, us in our generation, we have the ability. We know how to learn. We can read Lashon Kodesh. We can read the words of the Likutey Moharan. We can have a basic understanding, and so that's the way that we can connect to the Rebbe. But we have to have the search. If we don't search after the Rebbe, we won't find it. We won't find it. We won't get it anywhere. But if we do, so then we'll start moving on, and we'll be able to have a lot of success in life. So now we're going to learn. Now we're going to learn the Kala Shishi, the sixth Kala, the sixth principle. Davar akasu zelo mazeh osa halikim. Kefi biurai besifrei emes. Shekol animsa mitzad kedusha v'toiv nimsa keneged zeh mitzad tuma v'hara. Kekoif b'vnei odem. V'nilmod kama pam mitzad toiv meipucha yishu mitzad hara. So is this idea that's mentioned that when even we can learn things that from the good we can learn to the bad, and from the bad we can learn to the good, vice versa. So, for example, like the person, the idea mentioned in Kabbalah is that a monkey in front of a person. So how does this rule help me with this principle help me with learning like Likutey Moharan? So I can understand that when the Rebbe, when he starts speaking about the greatness of being besimcha, being happy, so from that I can learn out from there. I can learn out how terrible it is to be depressed, and also vice versa. When the Rebbe speaks about how bad it is, the marshchora and dikon, about depression, I can understand from there the greatness of how important it is to be happy. And this principle is twofold, because there's two opposites. There's something that's a complete opposite, and there's something that's an opposite that it's similar. So, for example, let's say we have sinas chinam, hatred for no reason. So the opposite of that would be loving a person for no reason. But the opposite, which is similar to it, would be hating a person for a reason, for a good reason. So that's what makes similar. So to give an example, which Rabbi refers to in Likutey Halachos, in Hilchos Shabbos Halacha Hey, he refers to the idea of the tzaddik gomer, the tzaddik ha'emes. That if we understand the greatness of the tzaddik ha'emes, the tzaddik gomer, a complete tzaddik, we can understand how terrible it is to be around a rasha, a wicked person, how much it could damage us. But at the same time, Rabbi refers to us that that it's tzaddik, that's only a tzaddik sas, somebody that's tzaddik, only a little bit of a tzaddik, even though being connected to them is good and it helps us, and we could gain certain things from it. But by being connected to a tzaddik, it's only a tzaddik sas, only a little bit of a tzaddik. That itself is master from us. It hides from us, conceals from us the tzaddik gomer, the great tzaddik that's holding on the highest level, and that prevents us from ever becoming connected to the tzaddik ha'emes, to the biggest tzaddik. And if we never become big, and only by the biggest tzaddik we can get our tikkun hashalim, our complete rectification. By the tzaddik ksas, we can only get a little bit of rectification. We'll be able to gain, but we'll never come to our complete rectification. So even though the tzaddik ksas is a good thing, but it's I forgot to mention that the complete opposite, that is connected the Gimel Klipos Tameas, that's something that's completely bad. And the opposite, which is similar, that's connected the Klipos Neiga, which is a mixture of the good and bad. So like here in our example of the Tzaddik Sas, there's good, it's Tzaddik Sas, he's a Tzaddik. But it's mixed in with a little bit of bad, because he prevents us from coming to be connected to the biggest Tzaddik, which will help us to get to our ultimate destination. So from this call, we can connect and understand that when we learn the Likutey Moharan, we can learn out the opposite, and it'll help us to have a higher level of understanding of what's going on. Now moving along to Klal Hashvi, to the seventh principle. B'chol amidos v'bechinos shemazchir mehem b'chol ein, kulo kol midah v'bechina b'pratius, mikol amidos v'bechinos shebezeh ha'inyan. Kein amuva b'sifrei emes b'davar hasphiros. So anytime the Rabbi mentions different midas, we know from the spheres, for many of us might be familiar with the spheres Omer, we mentioned Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, etc. Or Bechinas, I'll explain that shortly, that the Rabbi mentions in every single part. So each thing is made up of the other. So for example, that we're familiar with in Spheres Omer that there's Gvura Shebechesed and Chesed Shebegvura. But for most people, like myself, that doesn't know much Kabbalah, so that's very abstract. So I want to give a more practical example that will bring the idea home for us. So, to give an example, an ish v'isha, a man and a lady. That a man, we know that he's mainly connected to the idea of the intellect, the chokhmah, the seichel. And a lady is more, an isha, she's more the idea of bina, of regesh. A lady is more emotional than a man. And even though a man, his dominant trait is the seichel, is the intellect, but he still has an aspect of emotion within him. And also a lady, even though her main aspect is emotions, but she still has the aspect of intellect. And if not for the fact that a man and a lady both consisted of both of these, they wouldn't be able to connect and to each other. And our whole entire world is all made up of a combination of all these different things. And if not for the fact that everything had one of these aspects in it, we wouldn't be able to survive. So another example I could give is from Torah and Torah Zayin in the second chelik of Likutey Moharan. There he mentions the idea of Dari Mala. Dari Mala is somebody that's a higher level. That the highest level would be the Tzaddik. The Tzaddik is a Dari Mala, and he and with respect to the people below him, they're considered the Dari Mata. Shavias, we're not as holding on the same high level as the Tzaddik, but at the same time, even though we're considered Dari Mata, we're considered the lower level. Even the Dari Mata have an aspect of Dari Mala within them. So, for example, even though I'm below the Tzaddik, but in my own household, that I'm the father and I'm the husband, and I lead my wife and children, and so I'm considered above them. I'm the Dari Mala above them, or somebody that's a boss of a work. So he's the boss. Even though mainly he's the Dari Mata because he's not as high level as Tzaddik, but he has an aspect of him of the Dari Mala. He leads the people that work with him. And so I wanted to explain that what would be an example of the midas. So a lot of times the Rabbi, he mentions a lot of different subject matters in one Torah. So and he doesn't necessarily tie them together. So that would be the idea of midas. And sometimes the Rabbi explicitly ties them together, and he uses the word bechina. So I wanted to explain what that is, because bechina is probably one of the most used terms in Likutey Moharan and Likutey Elchos. If a person doesn't understand what that means, he could get very lost. So bechina means that what exists in this thing, we have it over here in this other thing, but just manifests itself in a different way. So, for example, if the Rabbi speaks about Malchus, he speaks the idea about kingship, and he speaks about the idea of kahuna, speaks the idea about being a priest. So, a priest also has an aspect of this kingship, but obviously he is not a king, because his main aspect is that he is a priest. And also in the kingship, that also the kingship, a king, he himself also has an aspect of priesthood, but that's not his main. That's not his main thing. So, and from this principle, we could take out a very big chizuk for ourselves, that we can know that Likutey Moharan, we could connect to it from where we are, because since everything is tied together, wherever I'm able to connect myself, that's also part of the thing. A lot of people say when they come to the Torahs and Likutey Moharan, they see that I've heard it myself in Shurim that the Rabbi is saying that this is the avodah that's only for the tzaddik, and that's a very big mistake. That yes, it's true that it is the avodah of a tzaddik, but the Rabbi also gives us, each and every one of us, on our level where we're holding, the same avodah of the greatest tzaddik that exists. And we have to know that from our obviously we have that avodah that on a lower level, and when we connect to it, we can also do the same big things that are being mentioned in the Likutey Moharan that we could do. That even though sometimes they are being mentioned about the avodah of Mashiach, the Rebbe gives us the avodah of Mashiach. We're doing the same thing that Mashiach is doing, just that the Mashiach, he'll do that on the Tachas Hashemus, he'll do it on the highest level, and us, everybody according to where they're holding, go connect and could do where he could do. And this call teaches us that even though, like I said before, even though the tzaddik, he is the Dari Mala, but I also have this bechina of Dari Mala. So even though I'm not the greatest tzaddik, but I also have all the things that exist in the tzaddik also exist within me, and they're just on a lower level, and and that's through that. I mean, knowing that information can help me connect to Hashem from where I am. Moving along to Kal Hashmini, to the 8th principle. Kol madregos ha'olos me'ein tachlis ad ein sof nechshavim kulam la'oros v'kelim ki kol madrega nechshavas l'kli asher tekabel ba'atzmas or v'shefa shenishba b'chol eis ha'madrega shel ma'ala mita אבל כנגד המדרגה המרס מלמטה יסר גם מאיתה נחשבת גם היא לעצם האור וקדושה המדרגה העליונה שנזכר בה. So first we need to know that there's Oros and Kelim. And Or, that is our destination where we want to get to. And the Kli is how we get to there. So we need to know that the Kli, the level where we're holding now, where we're trying to get to the next level, the Or, that inside this Kli, inside where I am now, also exists a particle of the Or, of the next level. And if that wouldn't be true, I would never be able to get to the next level. But not only that, when I get to the next level, when I get to when I get to that next level, that level becomes the opposite. That turns into be the Kli. That turns into be the way to get to the next highest level, which will become the Or. Now that might sound very abstract, so I'll try to give an example. Like in Torah Aleph, there it mentions that through coming to Emunah, through the Nun, which represents Emunah, that's how I could come to the Seichel Shebechol, to be Mistakel the Seichel Shebechol Devar, to see the intellect and everything that exists in this world, and how to connect it to Hashem. So the Nun, the Emunah, that was the Kli that helped me to get to the next level, to look at the intellect of everything. And then once I get to the intellect of the next thing, that becomes the Kli. And from there, that helps me to get to the next level, which is that all my tefillas and that I daven should be accepted by Hashem. And so we have both of these. And so for another example would be that the Rabbi would tell us that through Shmir Sabris, to tefillah, that through a person staying away from immoral relations, that'll help him to daven properly. And then he'll come to be Shomer Bris. That through the tefillah, he'll come to the next level to be able to stay away from immoral relations on an even higher level. So everything really, this is very much connected to the previous thing we learned. That everything has a certain aspect of it, even though it's not the same thing, but it's very much connected. Okay, so we'll stop here for today, and we'll continue next time with learning the Kal Shi. And anybody that's able to review over these shiurim, it'll help them very much, because we're learning things that are very difficult, and we're learning it very quickly, and most of us are not familiar with the material And it takes time. We have to keep reviewing it over and over again until we become clear with it. And we should, anybody who's able to prepare, read the next few column. The principle is advisable. And that which we already learned, the more you go over it, the more it's going to, one of the main things by the Rabbi is we need a lot of patience and yeshiva das. That if we don't have a lot of patience by the Rabbi, we'll never get anywhere. We have to have a lot of patience to know that it's going to take time, but and we have to work, but it'll be payoff because the more you put in, the more you get out of it. And I know that for myself that when I first started learning Likutey Moharan in depth, that I didn't put in so much and I didn't get so much out of it. And then I slowly started putting in more, and then I got much more out of it. And I see my friends, the ones that didn't put in much less, they didn't get so much out of it, and the ones that put in more, they gained much more out of it. So I advise anybody that's able to the more that you're able to put into it, the better. And even if you don't have a lot of time, because someone told me that how can you learn Likutey Moharan in this way, that he works 8 hours a day and he travels to work and he learns the Daf Yomi. He doesn't have time. So my recommendation to a person like that is that when the Rabbi said that you should go with his Torahs and he mentioned a certain amount of time, he might have meant that you should spend a lot of time into it. So we that don't have that much time, if we still put in 5 minutes a day, it'll take us a much longer period of time to get to the end results. But that's okay. It doesn't say anywhere that there's a limit to how much time you can spend learning this. So anybody's able to. You can learn. Everybody is able to learn 5 minutes before he goes to sleep. Likutey Moharan. You can keep going over a little bit each sif by sif until he completes the whole Torah and learn it over and over again until he becomes very familiar. And then after that he could go to start learning the Likutey Halachos and the Mefarshim on the Likutey Moharan and the Parparos L'Chochma and the Pir Likutim, and from there he'll be able to get. So today we'll stop for here.